Your arguments are basically that heaven is a place in the mind, and the mind can make heaven out of hell, whether you want to admit it or not. Society is meant to have a masculine warrior system, a pure light temple, pure sun temple warrior system. And people from various races have bred away from this, and those races have come out on top in the social order of a bunch of bitches, basically. That is a very simple but correct and accurate way to put it. So let us look at why this is and explore women's role in this. And I think it's safe to say at this point I despise women. I despise unattractive women for not coming into the Spirit of God and making themselves attractive. And I despise attractive women for sleeping with the enemy and the things I will discuss soon. But let's start off with Francis Galton's quote, shall we? Eugenics. It is the study of the agencies under social control that improve or impair the racial qualities of future generations, either physically or mentally. The study of the agencies, right? Like the intelligence agencies and other entities like social movements, political movements, economic movements under social control, which is basically everybody these days other than myself, that improve or impair the racial qualities of future generations, either physically or mentally. What does he mean by racial qualities? And what does this have to do with mind, body, and soul? Obviously, this is a sniveling coward who thinks in terms of strength and Western perspectives of being handsome, which is basically the handsome white guy that just bombarded on the masses over and over again, partially because the Asian looks similar to him, the white Asian, and the Jew looks similar to him. That's part of why people can't tell the difference between Jews and white people, such as Van Damme, Scott Adkins. A lot of people don't know whether they're Jews or white people. The line is successfully blurred, and they are very much so the same kind of Mediterranean Canaanite-looking kind of, white Canaanite-looking kind of person. All right. So when we look at this thing, okay, they're talking about future generations and physically or mentally, okay? Either physically or mentally. Of course, they're talking about both because they're talking about this agency focuses on physical fitness, the UFC, and so on, and how it relates to Western propaganda and propaganda systems and mechanisms. And this one focuses more on the mental, right? Education systems, sapiosexual movement, etc. And they define it in kind of Western cunning, the principle of cunning and evil, kind of a perspective, the perspectives on that are derived from the cunning and principles of evil that are found historically in Western culture. And I more than covered this in my other videos, with Zeus as a rapist, Jupiter helping the Romans rape the Sabines, Minerva helping them, Juno helping them, Neptune a rapist, Mars a rapist. They're all rapist ideas they have. Okay, so when we look at lost, why are people lost? It has to do with the list. And the L is, or the LOs, which is the list of deities. Which God, or L, right? L means Lord. Do they follow and why? And you see women named after Athena, people trying to mimic and embody Lilith. So when we look at the time period when the Civil War ends, within a few decades, the term eugenics is coined. And that has to do with the 3 phases of slavery. Okay, first it starts off with the initial phase. They have to crush and deal with effectively the natural martial arts order using the technology that bitches use to gain the upper hand. Kind of scientists, geeks, kind of types develop weapons, and they train kind of nerdy, they're nerdy kids, they're geeky friends, how to shoot these guns. And then they take on martial artists who would chop them down in a blink of an eye. And we even seen that, depicted in their own movies. We look at Tarzan, right? You see a bunch of kind of ruffian pirate-looking mercenary types with guns invading, I believe it was the Congo. And you see these martial artists, these African martial artists in perfect shape, moving with masterful timing and outmaneuvering them, which represents the capacity they have to outmaneuver their Western counterparts. So after the Western counterpart uses science and technology to overcome the warriors in their own cultures, They then, these geeks then colonized the world. Who colonized the world? Was it this kind of chivalrous man with high morality, whether or not he existed in the Western culture? Was it that idea? Or was it the geek? And was it the geek in the spirit of Yah, the moon temple, the prince of darkness? Okay, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? And so on and so forth. It takes a bitch to give birth to a dog, and it is a dog-eat-dog society where the woman chooses the man, chooses to have sex with him enough to get pregnant, chooses to have the child, and chooses to raise the child in a certain way, and other women influence that child's behavior. It is disproportionately the woman's fault. Okay? Which group of people is the most inferior using the natural scale? It is the daughter of wimpy, sniveling cowards. And certainly in the royal family, the groups of people that were shunned historically for being like these sniveling cowards, for being like an inferior man's daughter, okay, were the ones who reached out to all the bitches and said, while the warriors are away protecting us and defending us for truer and greater and natural principles and supernatural principles that are consistent with the most logical place to look for God and to prove spiritual prowess, which is martial arts, sparring, spirit, let us plot in a devious and unforgivable and diabolical manner to split the pie. And that's why pi resembles the symbol of the Shinto sun gate from their Eurasian perspective, which certainly is derived from traders in Egypt, etc. The sun and religion is nothing more than a pie to be split because it affects trade, reproduction, social status, political status, and economic status as well. So what does eugenics mean, right? Good stock, good genes, and good on ease, right? Stuck, seek, and sick, okay? The righteous are outnumbered by scum because of eugenics, and they are being held captive. They're a captive audience. So when we see Francis Galton, his name is also a play on words, which means free on, see eyes, L on. Right? So when you free the people who are reproducing in the true Son Spirit of God, not the Prince of Darkness, not the fake Apollo Sun Spirit, wannabe Ra, not Helios or any other sun deity you might find in pagan cultures all throughout the world, including Africa as well. Inferior ideas of the sun, the Khan-Hor perspective, etc. Okay, you free on and you see the eyes. We free the slaves and we say you're free to do what you want, and we'll see who continues behaving like a bitch and who starts behaving like a martial arts warrior, and we screen them out and play them out and rape and abuse them. Okay, also fry on. Okay, we free them and we give them this miserable atmosphere, which is similar to hell and the flames burning the wings of angels or something, and we see them suffer because they are not fit to be a native of hell. And so we see the eyes of the individual and they are screened out. Okay, so we see the Pharaoh Sun Temple perspective that leads to talking about reproduction and challenging intensely the existing martial arts system. We see that nobody, not the strongest and most athletic somebody, is worthy of being Pharaoh unless they talk reproduction in a way that is exactly like my way of addressing it, and challenges intensely the existing martial arts system. Can a bird that is not meant to breathe underwater survive underwater? No, they must emerge. In the similar manner and for a similar reason, the Igbo leader emerges. He is not an Asian martial artist with a yin-yang philosophy. He cannot tolerate evil. He cultivates the spirit of righteousness. And similar to Jesus in the Bible, he doesn't pretend to be evil to survive. He emerges and accepts the consequence like a man, not like some kind of lukewarm, black and white, checkered floor bitch. Okay. So are feeling-led, complex-having bitches suitable leaders? No, they are not. For this reason, no woman should ever be a leader other than that short period of time when the king dies and the queen is next in line to be in charge. Other than that, with the help of a lot of male advisors, mind you, she should never not for a moment be a leader. She is a feeling-led bitch, and if she had honor, she would understand the importance of elevating a man to that position, a worthy man and nothing less. So in the absence of a true pharaonic dynasty, we have nothing but bitches. Feeling-led, complex-having bitches, okay, that demand conformity. So we look at Ya. The lesbians dominate the moon culture and the LGBT community. A gay guy is like a wannabe gangster trying to kick around gangsters, right? He's trying to be in the feminine spirit that a female is more naturally in. Luxury versus love. Okay, most people would rather live with a small amount of money, enough to survive with their dream girl, than luxury and shunned by every attractive woman. Therefore, pussy power has more power than financial incentives. When you truly look at this, these financial incentives are only given power through the pussy power. Females' pussy power as a mechanism of torture, therefore, is the most effective mechanism of torture, and they use their pussy power on gays as well to get them to try to conform to their agenda. Why aren't the female members of the Rothschild family highlighted, or the Rockefeller family? No one knows the females off the top of their head, but we know Jacob, we know Nelson, we know David, okay, and we know John. Women also tried to get me to throw a fight, in my martial arts challenge. Men didn't go on record as such as directly, okay. Women are more materialistic, and they're more effective psychologists because of that pussy power component and their ability to network with other feminists and women and to apply psychology. And of course, it goes back to the most effective mechanism of torture in the absence of pure, of psychological torture, in the absence of pure misery, and pain, is the woman. Okay, in the absence of pure torture, right, burning them and so on. So the Ya Statue of Liberty, right? The Ya we see in the Statue of Liberty. Why isn't there a male statue? Because it is a bitch-made culture that in the long term favors the bitch, who was among the biggest group, if not the biggest group, left behind when the men who are being bred specifically to go to war. So you have a big group of women left behind plotting, a small group of homosexuals, and a small group of workers, craftsmen, masons, and other inferior forms of life. So who gets the alimony when there's a divorce? Neocon funded, Trump funded Clinton, right? He's a neocon, and it ultimately works in the woman's favor to wait for the right time for a female president to emerge. Men get worked up over women all the time. 12% of gang-related homicides when I was younger, the statistic I was given, are romance-related. And of course, one way or another, all the homicides relate to romance. And again, goes, why does the gang member want to dress nice? Why does he want to have the nice car and so on? He wants to impress women, not his male friends. So it's a nanny state. The bitch-ass tactics of gang stalkings and psyops and putting a bitch-ass motherfucker like Aquino in charge. Look at Manly P. Hall. He's an effeminate-looking bitch. Or he was. Look at Madame Vlasky. Let me see. Oh, yeah, she's a bitch. Feminist-looking bitch. Cersei. Okay, where we get Kirk and Church. Mother Cersei. A bitch. A bitch came up with the church, and they're in the bitch's moon temple spirit. Capitoline Triad, the new one. 2 bitches and a bitch-made Jupiter. Men are scapegoated, and it has to do, goat is their symbol of reproduction, right? The goat of Mendes, to mend the ease. Females say, kill yourself, and women are trying to get me to kill myself, but none of them are standing with me. Witchcraft, and remember, they're the most to blame. They're the biggest group of E's. What? There's more women than men in America, and the E is the feminine spirit. Who did you think was the most responsible? Okay, 2 to 5% maybe of gays? No, they're instrumental. But they're not the most to blame as a group in terms of numbers. It is women, and it is the non-black races for sure who are opposing this black culture, because at the core of black culture is the martial arts structure, really at the core of every culture, where other cultures are said to pale in comparison. I don't have time to go over that. Witchcraft is the root of Western magic. Voodoo versus bitch-made non-martial artists. Voodoo BS and made non-martial artists conform to their system using women and their connections with Western societies. When we look at the history of fighting for honor, and especially if you read between the lines, it also has to do with Chuku versus the gender-neutral Chinike idea, which is a despicable one. Well, I'm out of time.